Hey there, Riverland. How are you? You all right? Holding it together down there in southern Minnesota. Let's make a quick comment about the weather. My goodness. Change that can come in one day. Yesterday it was 75 degrees here. I know it was even warmer down there. And today the wind is just blustery and it's like 45 miles an hour and the temps are in the 30s. Minnesota is such a little prankster from time to time. And how happy I am to have woken up this morning to see the ice clear from my lake. It was about, it's just good to see water again. Makes me, gives me a little bit of hope. So, I gotta cut this. If you're not going to be surprised by the idea that I'm still thinking about Padraig because I'm hosting him next Tuesday, and I will make sure that you get the link to that so that you can attend, and I hope you do. Tuesday, April 6th at noon, I'll be driving up to my college and getting hardwired in by our videographers up there and get ready to host him out of Northern Ireland. I'll say to you what I said to my students yesterday. If you give it 5 minutes, like really, just give it 5 minutes, maybe 6, he's going to take a hold of you, you guys. He is just gonna, and you're going to find the next 40, 45 minutes delightfully vanishing, and you're going to be entertained because Padraig is a sweetheart. So I've got some stuff for you today. Jeepers Cripes, look at this. I got kind of residual stuff from a lesson that I didn't quite pull together last week. Gear here. In some, I got a poem for you, not by Padraig, but read by him for his work with Krista Tippett in the On Being series in St. Paul. Got some things I want to tell you about Shakespeare today, too. A number of things, and I want to show you something really important to me. It's a book. It's the collected works of William Shakespeare. For me, the definitive collection. That's the Riverside. And I want to show you a book today and a few ideas in the book. The story of the book is that it's been defiled, harmed twice. I've had it since 1978, and it's really a wreck. And then I'll show you my newer Riverside. And there's an Oxford version, but I'm all a real English major, worth their weight in soy base ink. We are all about the Riverside. So, poem, stuff I want to tell you about Shakespeare, and I think I'm going to veer towards something that it's going to be a ways away from research, it's going to be a ways away from literature. I'm actually going to go into rhetorical territory for a while. If you were with me in the fall, you know I'm kind of a classically trained rhetorician. I know that sounds like a boast, but it's true. And I've got some rhetorical observations to make for you about an event that happened, not at Riverland, but at my day job at Central Lakes College. And that is going to be not an easy thing to talk about. Heads up on the real topic, you guys got to be careful with email, okay? We'll get there when we get there, but just in your future workplaces, you're going to hear me say this again at the end of this video. You got to be careful with email. You got to watch it. This poem is hard to believe, and I'll spin it off my my tired old MacBook Pro here, and I think you can just take it in by listening. Again, this is not Padraig, but it is his voice, which is just silk to me.
What You Missed That Day You Were Absent from 4th Grade, written by Brad Aaron Maudlin and read by Padraig Otuma.
Mrs. Nelson explained how to stand still and listen to the wind, how to find meaning in pumping gas, how peeling potatoes can be a form of prayer. She took questions on how not to feel lost in the dark. After lunch, she distributed worksheets that covered ways to remember your grandfather's voice. Then the class discussed falling asleep without feeling you had forgotten to do something else, something important, and how to believe the house you wake in is your home. This prompted Mrs. Nelson to draw a chalkboard diagram detailing how to chant the Psalms during cigarette breaks, and how not to squirm for sound when your own thoughts are all you hear. Also, that you have enough. The English lesson was that I am is a complete sentence. And just before the afternoon bell, she made the math equation look easy, the one that proves that hundreds of questions and feeling cold and all those nights spent looking for whatever it was you lost and one person add up to something.
Can you believe it? Can you believe that poem? I cried over that one today. I had to go out on the porch and just cry in the wind. Right. Let me just do some storytelling here before I get to, getting all like lectury and professorial on Shakespeare. I'm not a professor of Shakespeare. I just love him and his plays. So let me go literary for a little while. But first, a basic idea. I hope you're all building up your own personal libraries. I've probably said this before. I love all kinds of libraries, personal libraries, public libraries, sacred libraries. I just do. And I've got a lot of virtual books, and I've got a lot of physical books. And here's one of them. This is what the Riverside looked like. Look at this baby. This thing is thick, you guys. This is all of it. This is all 37 plays, all the sonnets, the Rape of Lucrece, the miscellaneous poetry. And to just to repeat the idea, this book has been harmed twice. And one of the stories is a delightful story to me, and the other story is hard. And it involves this book. And I'll just go fast. My younger son, who's 24 right now, this big, gangly thing, just a magnificent man. When he was little, his favorite thing to do was to come into this study and take every one of my books and flip them around. So the spine would be in, and there'd be just pages out here. He thought that was the funniest thing in the world, to flip Dad's books over so I could never find the one I was looking for. He would laugh. This is when he was little and fat, when he could barely walk. He just thought he was a genius. Because he enjoyed it so much, when he would get done, I'd come in here and I'd flip them all around. And then the next day he would come and flip them back again. Everything that he could reach. And then came this day where I came to the bottom of that stairwell right there, and I heard this tremendous rip. Well, what had happened was the binding of this book was glued and dried. This book is tired, and he'd grabbed the top of it and pulled it, and he pulled it so hard it just came right off in his hands. And I saw that, and I came around the corner, and he was upset. His lip was already starting to tremble. He was fixing to cry. And I ran to him and picked him up and gave him the biggest hug in the world and smushed his cheek. I can still smell that cheek. And I let him know, it's okay. It's okay. You didn't mean to harm the book. You're all right. Let's have some macaroni and cheese and celebrate being alive, as Padraig would put it. And anyway, I have the story now because he did that. I want to report to you too, and here we revisit that idea that a lot of information can get attached to a book that you keep through the years. I'll pick up a book and I'll see a phone number in it that I don't even recognize anymore. I want to call it up and sometimes and say, I never do, but I want to call those numbers and say, hey, I see that I wrote your phone number in William Faulkner's As I Lay Dying. Who are you? And I was thinking in this way the spring I got fired. In 2009 from St. John's Prep School. Thought it was the end of the world, and it was actually releasing me to the greatest job of my life. And I was holding court in my old AP English classroom, and I was holding this book. And I was talking about the idea that one of the reasons why I love this book so much is because I can pick it up and I can see in the marginalia the remarks that I made when I was 18 years old, taking Shakespeare, an upper division Shakespeare course that I did not belong in, which was hosted by Professor Molyneux. And I told them the truth, that the remarks were so brilliant that I scribbled in pencil or pen that I must have just been mimicking putting down the remarks that Professor Knapp was making, because I loved her so. And I got to tell you something, there was a kid in that room, and I forgive him because he was a kid, but my Lord was he mean. Borgert was his name. And he hated me. He was totally on the side of the priest that was firing me. And this is how it goes sometimes. You get a kid comes along that just hates you. And I tried to love him any way I could. And here's the second way the book was defiled. The morning I said this, later that afternoon, I went down to my classroom, and he was sitting there in the shaft of sunlight. He had a green eraser, and he had opened my book up to Lear, and he was busily scrubbing away at the book with the eraser. I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He said, "Nothing." And he jumped up and bolted from that room and left the book open with the eraser. And I picked it up, and I could see that he had gotten about halfway through King Lear, erasing my remarks that I had made in 1978, erasing me, erasure. And I have forgiven him. Roberto Borgert, who I think is a no good lawyer now. Has no idea I'm talking about him on the internet. But he wasn't erasing me. He didn't erase me. Here I am, darting about with cunning and vigor. Here's my new one. I ordered this last year with faculty development funds. I actually gave it to my son. I signed it for my son, Will, who is Shakespearean. Love, Dad, February 2019. And he moved away and didn't take it with him. Now he's going off to Missouri to marry a girl, I think, and we'll try to get it packed into the car when he takes the rest of his stuff. Well, some stuff about Shakespeare. William Shakespeare wrote tragedies, comedies, histories, and romances. All of them are 5 acts. Never 4, never 6. I think it's important for you to know, too, that, excuse me, I bet that's loud, that he was not just a playwright and a poet, but an actor, right? And a businessman. Everybody's got to eat and live, and he was cranking out these plays to pay the bills in Tudor England. He comes and goes in 20 years. He ran 2 theaters. First, the Black Forest Theater, which burned down in a year that I can't remember. And then he built another one called the Globe Theater. And if you ever get to London, the new Globe is up. Probably shuttered right now because the virus is angry there. But if you ever go, I hope you do, visit the birthplace of Shakespeare. Visit the Globe Theater, either to see a production or just to check it out. There's a very special spot, apparently, in that theater where acoustically everything is perfect. You can whisper, and they can hear you in that vast theater. Modern acoustic theory probably was a part of that. So, actor, businessman. I used to stand in my classroom and say, Shakespeare wrote over 1 million words. Well, I Googled it. It's actually about 871,000 words. And here's a way of thinking about him. He was just a language genius. I don't want to depress anyone, but just get mathematical. In a given day, we probably use 1,100 words to get through the day. Just the business of, hey, how are you? Can I have a cup of coffee? Etc. And I don't know the real true number here, but most of us have a vocabulary that clocks in maybe around, 10, 15, 20,000 words if you're lucky, if you're an English major like me. And a lot of those words are words that are mashed up words, cognates, right? Like fire truck, fireman, which I still say. I'm not going to say fire person. Wildfire, bonfire, right? But apparently Shakespeare used, and I wrote it down here, and I found it on the internet, so it's got to be true. Shakespeare used a total of 31,534 words. That is a lot of different words. I want you to know, too, that the estimates really range, depending upon where you're looking. Shakespeare straightforwardly invented at least 1,200 words on his own. He did that by co-joining words. He did that by turning verbs into adjectives. He did that by turning nouns into verbs, and we're still doing that, right? If I say to you, Google that up, Google that. Well, Google's a noun, isn't it? Well, we use it as a verb now. And he also created new words by affixing prefixes and suffixes to the front and back end of words. And I just think that's worth knowing. The dude used a lot of words, and I should have told my people this yesterday. He also used 242 different figures of speech. not just the ones that we learn when we're 8th graders, right? Metaphor, simile, personification. He just knew what he was doing with language in a way that no other human being ever has. I think probably one of the more important things I want to tell you about Shakespeare right now is that, this is the most important thing. I asked my students, my Zoom students yesterday, how many of you talk to yourselves? How many of you would admit that? All the hands went in the air. Because we all do, right? The minute you wake up, in fact, before you even wake up in the morning, you're sleeping at night, dreaming. The brain really never stops telling ourselves stories about ourselves, either processing things that have happened or rehearsing things that are about to happen. And the minute we become conscious in the morning, there's the thing I'm interested in, consciousness, we start talking to ourselves. All my life, I've been interested in it, but only recently have I been truly interested, recent years, in the inner chatter that goes on in our heads. And I can, before I tell you one more thing about Shakespeare and move on to something else, I want to tell you that one of the sadnesses in my life right now is that I've had to put aside a little tradition that is about the inner chatter, self addressing self about self. And I love doing this, and I'm so lonesome for it. It's every semester. I come into my room, a bunch of envelopes, a bunch of paper, I distribute them, and I tell my students, I usually do this at the end of a class while running really groovy music, just beautiful, beautiful contemplative music. And I'll say, okay, you've got about 5 minutes, write a letter to yourself. And maybe you've done this before in church or school. Write a letter to yourself. Address yourself. Say, dear Adam, and then tell yourself something about yourself. Maybe tell yourself something about the day that you just don't want to forget. And boy, they just go to it. And I say, be sure to sign it. Love, right? Because we got to love ourselves. And students have fun with that, and they scribble away. And I suggest to them, hey, you could leave yourself some money. I forgot to mention. I distribute these always at the final, on the last day of class. I play the mailman while they're doing kind of usually a lightweight final, because the last day of a semester is no time to be hammering on anyone. And they give themselves $5 and $10 bills, and it's really a wonderful moment. Students save the letters, and because it's a state college and not everybody makes it to the last day, I'm always standing there with a couple of envelopes of students who are generally stopped attending. Generally, if you come to class, I'm easy. My classes are easy. So why am I talking about this way in relation to Shakespeare? It's crucial to understand that Shakespeare characters, they're not the first that talk to themselves in literature. But Harold Bloom, my king, Professor Harold Bloom, points out that characters in Shakespeare are the very first characters to not only talk to themselves, but overhear themselves. And in overhearing themselves, they are transformed. So there are moments in Shakespeare, and these are, as far as I'm concerned, the most fascinating. Yeah, it's fun when there's people on the stage and rah, 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 and they're striving, struggling is going on, whatever it is, depending upon what classification the play is. And then you'll see that little word, exeunt, I don't even know how to say it, E-X-E-U-A-N-T, I think. It just means exit. And there's these moments in Othello where everybody just goes, and it's just Othello on the stage, and he starts talking to himself while talking to the audience, breaks the fourth wall down. He's talking to himself. He's resolving to do this or that or not do this or that. And you can watch him be transformed. And I think these moments are really worth it. Othello's going to approach you. I've seen this more than once for years. This is the first year, by the way, in 34 years that I haven't gotten students to Shakespeare because of the pandemic. Guthrie is shuttered. Othello will walk to the edge of the stage and say to everybody, okay, now watch. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. Watch. And then he enters back into the play, and he does exactly what he told us he was going to do. And in this play, It's Raise All Kinds of Hell, there's a rule, you guys. Only good can create. Evil can only destroy. Evil can only be destructive. And these are the things I wanted you to know about him. Now, with 11 minutes to go, I'm going to veer away from Shakespeare. I'm going to veer away from literature. I'm not even going to say anything researchy about the project, because I want to get this thought in. I asked my students yesterday, give me another 10 minutes here, if you can, or just cut me off and just go make a sandwich, or pause me, take a break, and then come back. I asked my students yesterday, have you ever heard the phrase flyover country? And in each of my 4 classes, it was like one person. And it was usually an older student who, with a little more life experience. And my younger ones, my PSEO students, were like, I have no idea. So what I said was, well, and then when I explained it, sorry, chapped lips. When I explained it, they were all like nodding, like, okay, we get that, we get that. Flyover country is completely insulting to me. And maybe I'm getting all, prickly here, but flyover country refers to the Midwest, okay? Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, the Dakotas. And it's who's going to use that phrase? Somebody that's like super cool from the coast, right? Either the East or West Coast. And they call us flyover country because we are the country that they literally look down upon, from their jet windows in every way, thinking, look at all that corn, look at all those cows. Thinking of us as a place of unimportance, thinking of the Midwest, Minnesota maybe, as a place where nothing important happens. Well, what I'm telling everybody yesterday, and by now you must obviously know, the last way that you can appropriately describe Minnesota today this week is as flyover country. The entire world is watching what is going on with the George Floyd, with the trial of that Chauvin guy, who we all saw it, who put his knee into the neck of George Floyd for a really long time. And that man died, and we all saw what happened. Romla, you were closer to it than any of us. And I'm nervous, okay? I'm cautious about this. I think the last thing we need is for the riots to start up again, and for us to start punching ourselves in the head again in all different ways, attacking businesses, attacking federal buildings, setting fires. I hope we can skip that this year, and yet the weather's getting warm and people are coming out, and the sort of nationwide in cities all over the country, the season of protest is beginning. Not being political, I'm just being nervous. This is history happening in Minnesota. So check it out. Like I kept saying yesterday, prosecutors are going to argue that a knee on the neck for 9 minutes is murder. That killed that black man who was not resisting arrest much. And the defense attorneys are real clear. This is live. You can watch this online. That's weird too. The courtroom is so small that they've decided that there's not enough room for reporters, and they're letting. You could watch it on the New York Times. The defense is going to say, okay, or the defense is going to say, look, he was in the throes of a drug overdose before Chauvin even got there. The other young police officers should have noticed. I said to my students yesterday, he did have methamphetamine in his bloodstream and enough fentanyl to kill off 3 or 4 Zoom squares in front of me. They're going to argue that he had an artery that was 75% blocked and that he had a heavy heart or heart trouble. Well, I don't think that'll work. You can run a marathon with a heart that's got blocked arteries, and I'm nervous, and I think this is what we're talking about. And staying with the same subject but switching a little bit, I just want to tell you, I have been nervously waiting for the moment maybe when I would realize that the division, the rancor, the tumult that I'm seeing in the world cities in the last year, in our troubled year of the pandemic, would begin to manifest and be enacted at one of the colleges that I work for, like Riverland or Central Lakes. And I didn't have to wait very long. And I'm going to wind up here in a minute and make my final point regarding email. Just give me a few more minutes here. Last Friday, backing up, when I got to Central Lakes College 10 years ago, this is a rhetorical observation. And if you're hearing me right now here, you might spare yourselves a world of trouble 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. When I arrived at Central Lakes College about a decade ago, I asked one of my colleagues, Matthew Ford, I said, hey, there's something missing from my life now that I'm here. Why doesn't Central Lakes College have the crazy reply to all email wars that I saw at St. John's and St. Ben's every month? And he laughed. And he said, well, what were they like? And I told him, I said, well, you'd open up your email and somebody would just go, bleh. And then another professor would go, rawr, hitting reply to all. I told him that once somebody chimed in and said, hey, how do we feel about our students eating lunch in class? Oh, that thread lasted for 2 days. Like 2 days later, the thread was still going. People chiming in. But by the time like 40 emails had slidden by in the thread, they were on to a new topic. They didn't even start up a new thread. It started out being, how do we feel about them eating lunch in class? And it ended up with teachers saying, how do we feel about students who come to class in jammies, who come straight from their dorm room wearing pajamas to class? And I don't think I had the nerve to ask the question, what would we do if they came to class with a lunch and jammies? Would we go back in time? Would that be a rift in the space-time continuum? And Fort laughed over that, and I love this guy. And he said, you know what, we usually have an email war late March when cabin fever is at its worst. I observed that it's late March, and you guys, I'm really sorry to report to you that last Friday, one of the gentlest, this is public, I'm not breaching any confidentiality. When you write an email in public, it's a public thing. And last Friday, one of the sweetest, most gentle men I've encountered in all my days as a teacher, one of our historians, Professor Bob Brecken, put up a post that had something to do with race and ethnicity and inclusivity. And I didn't really read it. I just kind of went, okay, I don't have time for a seminar right now. I'm behind on student writing. And I kept moving. And again, this guy has never heard of Flea. Well, he posted that up, and a little while later, I look on my email, and there was an answer to this guy, his invitation that came out of our heavy equipment department. I'm not going to say the guy's name. I'll just say the department. I'm not going to read you the email. I'll spare you the email. But it was, I got 25,000 emails. This one was the worst, you guys. This email should not have been launched. The gist of it was, I'm sick of this. I'm tired of being made to feel ashamed for being a white person. It was just really kind of an assertive pushback that it just should not have happened. Then somebody jumped in, pushed back. Somebody also from the Staples Technical Campus went, "Hear, hear, way to go, man, amen." And then somebody came out of trio with a serious pushback, cutting that guy to the quick from a young boy whose name doesn't also need to be mentioned. And we had a little email war going on. And I chimed in very gently with a theme of, okay, we got to love each other, you guys. If we stop loving each other, we are going to be in trouble. We have to love each other through the differences. And because I don't want to make this YouTube too long, I won't burden you with the real and show you how I ended that email. You can just imagine me just trying to go, you guys, take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy. We got to stick together. We are brothers and sisters. I keep repeating that. I'll just end, because I'm near the 28 mark, with just listen to me here. Be careful with email. In your future, I know you're texting. That's how you communicate with each other, texting. And I'm worried about your thumbs. Probably already told you. I'm worried that someday you're all going to need thumb replacements. In the same way my generation is getting like knee and hip replacements, you're all going to be getting little titanium thumb joint replacements years from now. So just watch it. A little more seriously, when you get to your jobs, like jobs with a capital J, career with a capital C, we do business in email. And that might change, technology's changing, but it's been several decades now that email is the currency. Email is the way people communicate in a workplace. Be careful when you email one person, especially if you're mad, especially if it's late at night. Be judicious and prudent when you tap reply to all. and you answer more than one person. Be particularly careful when you're sending out a mass email. Okay, I just did it today, but I felt pretty safe, right? I wanted to promote my poetry event, so I typed in Brainerd faculty, Brainerd staff, Staples faculty, Staples staff, and it was just my standard little, ninth year of here, pay attention to poetry, and almost no one does. Who cares? I'm going to keep trying. But suddenly I found myself sending an email this morning to 331 teachers and staff, support staff, administrators. I felt pretty safe. I was promoting beauty. I wasn't asserting how powerful I am because I'm a white male. Not a good idea in today's climate, and I don't feel that powerful anyway. So just watch it. Just be very, very careful. My final thought is, Socrates never wrote a thing. He didn't write a word. He mistrusted writing. Now, Plato wrote everything down that he said, which is a good thing. That's why we have the Platonic dialogues. I was just showing this off yesterday. I got some awesome books. Socrates had the idea that, okay, once you write something down, once you create an artifact of writing, you're not in control of it anymore. It might go off and do something that you don't want it to do. He likened a piece of writing to a child turned loose in a shop full of very expensive, fragile things like pottery. And we all know what young children want to do in a place that's full of things that they can break. Please be careful. I love you guys. I'll be back with more researchy stuff later in the week. I'll put up more acts in Othello. And again, let me just say it one more time. This will be the last time I say this. Still the pandemic. Keep your chin up and your head down. I got to come up with something better than that. Love you. God bless you.